Hi guys, I am Reverend Jeff Will Rumble, and I am all about the nature stuff. Because, you know, God has made this beautiful, beautiful world, and I just like to get out in it, to see it, to enjoy it. So I was looking at my last video, and I gotta be honest, didn't like it that much. It was too long, tried to do too much, bad camera work, and I didn't even show everything that I wanted to show. So gonna be a little quicker today, and just gonna cover one thing. Gonna cut some rock, gonna cut a stone. And so I'll be using this material here that I think shown before. It's here, let's get that up there. It's this here. It's from Sleeping Beauty Mountain, which is in the southern Cadies out in the Mojave Desert of California. Sort of a jasp-agate, I guess. It's the light does come through the lighter portions, so it is translucent. It doesn't always come in bigger pieces. Sometimes you get smaller chips. So my last video actually showed you how you could possibly find this place. But the truth is, well, a couple of things. One is that because of BLM closures, now you're either breaking through that closure and driving into an area that is closed for environmental reasons, or you're walking an extra mile, mile and a quarter, mile and a half, and it really does take to get this stuff out. I carry with me a 4-pound crack hammer, an 8-pound sledge, and a fistful of chisels, and it takes that. It really takes that to break through this material and get it. So there's that, and also all of the stuff that was easier access, and probably most of the deposit entirely, I've already got. So, you know, you could figure out where to go, maybe, but in any event, most of it I've already got. So, the stone I'm going to be cutting today didn't start out very big. It's this here, so, well, we're talking maybe golf ball size? Ping pong ball size? Something like that. I've already cut away this little slab piece. This will eventually be a cabochon of some sort. I've cut away this little slab piece. It also will eventually be a cabochon. So those two, setting aside that this little end piece here, a lot of folks might throw this away, but I've looked at it and I think that I can probably get a cab out of this. So that's what I'm going to be working on today. So as I continue to try to learn and develop at least a little bit of skill with the cab machine, I have been working with this material some, and I've made a couple of things that I'll show you. I've made here, this one here is nice. Obviously, it's pretty good size. You can see the pattern just is wonderful. This one is one of my favorites. I love the way some of the white ends up being almost lavender instead of white. And I should mention, these things under shortwave ultraviolet, they glow green. So that's pretty cool too. Depending on which part of the deposit I'm working with, it also ends up getting in this dendritic black, which is really neat. So that shows up. This little one here, it can be brittle, and I had one that I liked and dropped on a hard surface. So this, I cut it down and got this little smaller piece out of it, and I just love the pattern on this one too. This is an absolute favorite. Not sure what I'll end up doing with it. Eventually it may be a pendant. I think it would look good set in silver. And I haven't learned silversmithing yet at all. One of these days. One of these days. In the meantime, cab machine is over that way. That way. Let's go cut a rock. So this piece that I'm going to be working on has a couple of features to it. First of all, you can see the pattern here. The thing is, if I'm going to be cutting a bezel into the stone so that it can be set, that means that the bottom is a little bit wider than the top and wider than the dome area. So this flat that we're looking at here, that's got to be the bottom. What I will do then is work on this top and bring that down to create more of a flatter piece. I also will need to, of course, bring in these edges a little bit, and this particular piece, this bit, has to go. That's all way too thin to use. So really, when you see all of this red here that looks so nice there, that's all going. But if I look here, I can see a bit of red right in there. So it might have, as I come down, might have some good red in the rock, in the face, that would show up in the dome. The thing is, it's with this stuff, because that pattern moves around, and you know, there's spots and there are swirls and lines, and because it moves around so much, I don't really know what it's going to end up looking like. I have a little bit of an idea as far as the trend, and you can see that. So I don't know what it's going to look like when it's done, though. This is something like, unwrapping the beauty that's in there. We can't see it now, but we know it's in there. We're going to unwrap it, and we're going to see what we get. So I'm actually hoping that I'll be able to get a 20 by 15 stone out of this. Maybe. If not, I should at least be able to get 18 by 13. And I will, a little later on, be using this template here to mark it off and to help give me the shape. But for right now, just need to cut it down and start working, prepping. And here we go. So as you can see, I'm getting a little closer. This is cut in the wrong way, so it's going to end up coming in a little bit from that edge, and I still have not. I'm keeping this because I have a tendency when I'm working with smaller stones to get my knuckles into it. And these things, if I just do this, not a problem. My fingers are fine. But if you push your knuckle on it, you are going to lose some skin, and I've done that more than once. So I've decided to try and use this as the back rather than the front, just because I do like that pattern a little better. I think it's nicer. I don't know how much of this purple I'll be able to keep once I create the dome, but that's what I'm going for anyways. Next step then is pull the bezel guide and start cutting a bezel. So we put the front down, we keep the back up, and aim for just outside of this line. I drew this line on with little aluminum pencil and using that template. So I'm going to basically cut in so that there's a little bit of bezel there, and then this in the middle is what I'll end up with as the face of my stone. So there's a couple of good things happening here now. One is that I am now getting down toward closer to the oval shape that I'm wanting. The other is that, as you can see, I'm starting to get this little angle here that will become the bezel edge for setting the stone once it's ready for jewelry. So, little ways to go still on that. This part here is especially looking chunky and it really needs to be rounded, but yeah, working. As you can see, the face of the stone, what will become the dome, now fits just fine through the template. The back does not, which is exactly what I want, because that's how the stone will eventually be set. And one of the tricks is you kind of get it in there and wiggle it around a little bit. Then look out here for the marks, like right there, as to where here where to grind a little next. And that helps me to get it shaped in accordance with the template. So, need a little bit on this end, need a little there, and yeah, a couple of... So the last thing that I like to do before I move this over to the dop stick is these edges right here. There's always the potential for them to chip. And so what I'll do is I'll just give a light little run around here and round those edges over. And I will continue to do that from this step all the way through the remainder of the process, including the final polish, just to make sure of that. This will not change the size of the stone. It will not change the bezel or anything like that. This is just a very light little touch. Just to round those edges a little. All right, so for dopping the stone, I've got my wax heated up. This stuff is really kind of gooey and messy and tough to work with, but it's heated up. The stone also is heated up, sitting on this border outside. So I just want to get basically a glop of the stuff on here. Set the stone on and make sure it's level from all sides, level and centered. And at that point, ready to work with. Okay. So different folks handle this next step in different ways, I guess. What I do is, I don't know if you can see, I've marked a line about halfway up all the way around, and that line is going to help me with how far down the dome goes and then what's left on the outside as the bezel edge. So what I tend to do is I get way over top and I'll spin the stone on the stick and slowly form essentially a pyramid there, and then I can work the top down, and that way I can turn that into a dome as I go. So I apologize if I block view. I'm not sure how this is going to come out. I really am new to filming this, but here we go. So I'm doing okay with this, not great. What I'm finding is that, remember that color that I was really liking and wanted to keep? I'm burning a lot of that off. So we'll see how it turns out. The other thing is, I've been in and out working on this through the day. I'm starting to get a lot more shade here. And eventually, if the sun starts to go down on me, I actually do this work with a headlamp on quite a bit. So okay, so I think where I'm at now is a little bit of cone on top, so I'll flatten that out and roll through that, and then it will not be long at all. I'm gonna start doming this now, and then I'll be moving off toward my Nova wheels, and I'll get to that in a second. But the up and down motion is what allows for the dome to be more smooth and rounded. So I'll kind of start and work my way through, then flip it around the other side and do the same. End to end. And end to end. And at this point, yeah, I'm ready to go to the Nova wheels. So one of the things I do at this point is I begin from here all the way around the bezel side, because I want to be sure that ends up polished as well. So I'm cleaning the scratches off of these two grinder wheels here. And I do that just by doing a couple laps on each wheel that I work on here. The Nova wheels are a softer material, and so that allows the stone to push in a little bit and allows for a greater smoothing and doming. For the most part, down and up halfway, down and up halfway, down and up halfway, and then work around and spin and turn that movement. You don't want to get locked into any one spot or any one groove, or you will create flat spots on your stone. So those first three wheels had to do with shaping the stone, and at this point I'm now polishing. And that's what these three wheels are about. It's about removing the scratches so that they're smaller, 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 and you end up with a nice glassy polish on a stone like this with material like this. So I start again with hitting that bezel edge, and then I'll work the dome. So one of the things you want to do is sort of check it against a stationary light source. That should be a single spot in the glare on the stone. So I've got the sun coming off from my side here. I'm able to do that. And as you move the stone around, that little spot of the light should remain exactly the same size. If it gets big, if it jumps around too much, it should remain the same size. It should be smooth, and that way you know that your dome is even, that your dome is level. And so it looks like I'm pretty good here, and I do want to work on this a little more. One of the things that you find is that if you move too quickly from one wheel to the next, you get leftover scratches from the previous wheel. And so I want to be absolutely sure that I use this wheel to get rid of the scratches from the previous Nova wheel, and then this one gets rid of the scratches from here, and this one finally gets rid of the scratches from here, and then we'll be done. Drying it off and having a look that way is probably a good method, I think, for finding scratches. I don't think I've got any. I think I'm good here. So moving forward. Okay, last wheel. So this is where we are. It's turned out to be a much, turned out to be a much darker stone than I would have expected, but I think still nice, still interesting. Got some pretty good color and some pretty good pattern to it. So the next step will be to take this and actually put it in the freezer. And in the freezer, what happens then is that this dop wax becomes brittle, and I can just pop it. All right, so this is out of the freezer. While it was in freezing, I've been working on a couple other things. Here is a moss agate. This one is ready to mark up the outside and then put it on a dop stick. This one here, a piece of banded jasper. See if I can get a little bit so you can see the color. Piece of banded jasper. Both of these are also from Sleeping Beauty. This one, that'll be the top, that'll be the bottom. This is now ready to cut the bezel into it. But in the meantime, this is just out of the freezer, and sure enough, wow, I didn't even have to do anything. That just rolled right off in my hand. And so at this point then, as soon as I get rid of that little bit of wax there, I can go ahead and clean up the back. So again, I hit the edges all the way around, and then I'll show you what I do here. So it doesn't take much, just that, and then I actually go underhanded and just hold it under the wheel a little bit, move it around, spin it around. I'm generally not quite as concerned about making it absolutely perfect just because it's going to be set. This is not what's going to be seen, but it's nice to have it So there it is, finished cabochon. Nice little guy, 20 by 15 length. You can see how it turned out to be relatively purple, a lot more purple than it looked in the fading afternoon light of yesterday. About the same size as this here, this previous one that's a little more red and striped, different pattern. And you can see that material from that place really has such variety to it. But this is the one that we did yesterday. Back's polished up as well. Did a couple other things. Also, this one, unfortunately, it's got a really neat moss pattern to it, but unfortunately has these flaws here in the material, in the stone itself. So I think I'm going to have to go back and cut this down and come up with a much smaller piece out of this one. It did have a another piece off of that same rock that might be a little cleaner. I also worked on this jasper, also from Sleeping Beauty. It's a banded jasper. It's got, especially in the darker areas here, I think a bit of salamoline to it, so you get a little bit of that metallic glint to it, and that's it's a manganese oxide material in there, but it's a pretty neat pattern and interesting color goes with that. I also worked on, this is a bloodstone from Acton, California, and I really like the way that yellow sort of brecciated pattern inside has almost an aqua colored silica material around it and over it, and so the whole thing has that aqua tint over top of it. And if you can, oh, the back there doesn't quite show it. There's another piece to this that has a lot more of the green. So that's that. This is our piece again that we worked on, the purple. Very nice little stone. It could be a ring, it could be a pendant, and I have not decided yet. So work on that at some point. In the meantime, I do hope that you have fun adventures yourself. Hopefully in my next video I'll be able to get out in nature and maybe find something or do something else that's pretty cool. There's just so much out there that's so wonderful and so enjoyable. I love to get out and experience. Hope you do too.